society changes and it doesn't change. And there's always this thing with... Let me start differently. For millions of years, things evolved, and as things evolve, we have hormones, and hormones are part of our DNA, and they evolve, and the hormones make us do things, and there's instinctive things that we just do. You know, things like someone flicks their hand towards your eye, you jerk back. It's an instinctive thing. It's a physiological reaction. But then we have societal things, and some of those are kind of instinctive as well, but other times they're not. There we have like a spread of behavior, especially with males. The more variety there. Nature experiments with different combinations and things, so we get more different personality types. The really, really, really nice guy, the really, really asshole guy, all sorts of combinations. It's the whole spread with women as well, but more so for men, for reasons I'll go through elsewhere. Anyway, so as a result of as a result of that, there's certain things that are kind of universal, but we kind of negotiate them. Not negotiate them, that's the wrong way to put it. Society, these things, instead of being instinctive things, they're things that are taught. And they're taught for so long they become part of what's known as culture. For example, marriage. The concept of a marriage. Now, around the world, from one tribe to another, there's something that happens, some ritual. A ritual that happens when someone gets married. And it's kind of a little bit different here and there, but there is some kind of acknowledgement. Something happens. Now you could put this type of dress, or you could, wear a different type of hat, or sing a different song, obviously a different ritual. But overall, it's going to be the same. The concept exists, and as things. Now, this is good, because these things become part of the culture. I mean, you grow up with it. You evolve. That's the wrong way of putting it. You grow up with certain things, that beliefs and practices that are unquestioned. That's just how they. And of course, religion is the big one. You know, the Muslim kid grows up with Islam, and that's the Muslim kid, and of course, blah, 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 and they go on and on and on. And one of the reasons, of course, it goes on and went on for so long without changing is because there was no contact with the outside world. A little tribe who always has done this, has always done that, and this is normal, and things evolve in that way. And we're talking millions of years. But before there was, I don't know what point you'd say the culture, because I suppose when language came apart, when you can talk about more complicated things. But anyway, let's leave all that aside. Here's the point I'm trying to make. We have things that people do because that's what the society does, and they've always done them. And there's the evolutionary things that makes them physically want to do that, but there's also the cultural pressure to do something. And sometimes these things can evolve. Okay, let me just give me a second just to figure out the way to explain this. I'm never sure whether to just blurt out the idea which won't make sense, or give the build-up which will make sense, but then the build-up can get more and more complicated. You know what? Let's work backwards from the conclusion. Here's the conclusion. There's a lot of stuff that people are doing these days. Yeah, sorry to switch this on you, but I just think before I forget my thought, I'll give you the point, and then I'll explain how I got there. Okay. Today we have people who are encountering conflicting ideas, new ideas. We're not little tribes anymore. We have new options to experiment with this and this and this. In the past, there was this pressure in the tribe to what's the word? Not convert, to not correspond, to conform. Conform to the tribe. So ostracism was the big one, of course. So everybody does the thing. Let's give a specific example. Okay, this is getting a bit wishy-washy. Wearing underwear, right? Wearing some kind of undergarments. Now, obviously, in the past, there's people did it, and there was never actually a discussion about it. It wasn't a question. It wasn't like, this is why we wear underwear. It's just like everybody wears underwear because it's the right thing to do. It's the proper thing to do, or whatever word you want to come up with. But it's not a explanation. It's not a intellectual discussion. There's no discussion about it. I'm sure, if you're like me, it was never explained to you in depth the reasons why. Okay? Now, and people grew up just following along. Now, as we go into the modern world and people are experimenting with this and that, and they've got the freedom, big cities, it's anonymous, there's less chance for ostracism now. You can be ostracized, and some people, of course, conform to their group. But if you've got the personality that likes to play on the edges of possibilities, then there's a chance you'll find someone in a big city to go along with it. So, I don't know, S&M, for example, or being gay, or being promiscuous, or even what I'm doing right now, having an intellectual discussion. I'm sure in a little village, most of the people would think, gee, he's weird, he talks a lot. Maybe you're thinking that. And they wouldn't get it, and they would just ignore me and brush me off because I say weird things that they don't quite get, because their IQs might not be able to process stuff. They might not be able to stop and think, what is he trying to say? They'll just say, he's talking funny, he's saying weird things. But of course, now we have the internet, we have people that, I'm sure there's books that you've read that no one else has read the book, you just heard about it somewhere. This would never have happened in the past. As an aside, I was listening to someone talk about how an African in countries, in societies where they don't actually write things down, there is no dictionary, of course. So everybody has the same words. There is no word that people don't know how to use. So the language ends up being really, really simple, and therefore there's no concept. There are no new concepts, because you can't have the word for the concept, because you've got to come up with the word for the concept. So you can't read about a new concept and talk about a new concept. Everything has to be contained within one person. Anyway, let's not get into that. Here's my point. A lot of times people now are trying different things, and there's some things from the past that were useful and some things that were not, and some things in the past that caused actually traditions that are bad. So now here we're in the position where we have to reinvent, we have to figure out what we're going to keep, what we're going to throw away. And because our parents didn't really explain the reason why, because it was just part of the culture, and now that we're exposed to different cultures, there's this confusion, this lack of certainty, which in one way is good, because we're not stuck doing things, we're questioning things that are not ideal. Cures for diseases, things that people used to try that didn't work, or things that they believed were true. And so now we have to relearn things, because people are throwing away the baby with the bathwater. There were some things that actually made sense. Going back to the underwear example, you think, well, okay, if we started with a nudist colony and think, yeah, man, we're going to be all naked. And you think, well, hold on a sec. Okay, we're naked. Okay, naked society, cool. But then we have the practical thing of, well, hold on, so everyone's naked. That means if you're walking around, I don't mean in the jungle, I'm talking about I wonder how nudist camps work. Because you're sitting on a chair, sorry to get a bit icky, but if you're going to sit on a chair and you're naked, then, even if you've wiped your ass, people fart, and there could be little bits of fecal matter. See, I told you, sorry. You still with me? Come on. Look, I'm trying to make a point here. The point is I don't want to sit on a chair if you've sat on it, especially with strangers for some weird reason. If it's your girlfriend or some other situation, maybe even there, sounds strange saying it, but with strangers, I definitely do not want to sit on where some guys or woman's sat on it. I'm assuming they have towels and they walk around and put towels on things. But again, I stopped recording there for a second. Where was I? I was going to say, but again, even if they use towels, they put the towels down, and how do I know that, or if they put the towel down, they sit on it, how do I know that when they pick up that towel and put it on the next chair that they put it the right side up? So the obvious solution to this, the simplest one would be everyone to wear underwear. I don't know, what did the Romans do? Did they have... Anyway, so you see, we come back to now, wearing underwear is a good idea. And not because of sexual morality, reasons, but simply for that reason. I'm just struggling to think of some kind of urban society where they didn't wear underwear. I'm pretty sure everybody at some point wore some kind of under things everywhere. And again, I don't know if it's for that reason, but it kind of makes sense. Now, how did someone figure this out? How did they, did someone get a disease? Or at what point did someone at some point think we should cover our genitals? It's a whole other reason, whole other thing. But the point is that so many things that we're having to possibly relearn. And that's where modern life can be complicated, because we're trying to innovate and throw away things that are based on myths, that are not true, that we don't need anymore. For example, burning witches, people that say crazy, or burning epileptics at the stake, stuff like that, or having slaves, which is considered bad today. But one time it wasn't. Anyway, that's kind of the point I want to make, is that we have a situation where, in trying to figure out how to live your life and what's right and wrong, what should you do and what shouldn't you do, and I think this modern generation has thrown away a lot of stuff from the past, and I'm one of them. And the other one is, of course, should an 18-year-old girl, 17, 18, in the past was you're supposed to get married. It's for your female gets a period, and now she's 13, 14, whatever it is, she's got a period, okay. And of course you're planning for this. At this point we have to, there's no contraception, so we're going to have to do the wedding ceremony to get her married and have a guy, because obviously she's going to have sex and there'll be babies, and we want to make sure that the babies are with a guy that's going to stick around, and we're going to, of course, it's all a family thing. It's not just individuals, strangers with romance and stuff. It's a family arrangement of, okay, so your son, this and this, you seem like a nice family, we've got a daughter, blah, 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 they get along, everything's cool, and we can, we have all this organization that's based on tradition, and tradition's got a really bad reputation these days. Conservatism is supposed to be a bad thing. It's supposed to be, and I grew up thinking that conservatism was basically stupid people just following rules they didn't even know why, because that's the way it's always been, and which is of course what dumb people do. But just because people have always done it doesn't mean it's wrong. And before you throw it out, you need to check, what are you replacing it with? What is this new thing you're replacing? What is this new standard? And consider what the advantages were of the old standards. And this gets more complicated. I'm not going to cover the whole topic here, but the other issue, of course, is because we've had this amazing technological change, for the first time in history, we have the youth who grew up with the new technology, are used to it and are good at it, and the parents, which are not. So the parents come across as dumber and stupider and more useless. And of course, the parents might be uncomfortable, so the kids are getting the impression that the parents are useless, which the kids always have had that little bit, that rebellion. There's that famous quote from some ancient Greek who talked about how the youth of today have got no respect and da-da-da-da-da. But at least in the past, if things didn't change, if one generation didn't change from one generation to the next, so if you're an Aboriginal and you're hunting and you grow up and you learn to hunt, or your dad shows you how to hunt, or the men go with them on the hunts, and you figure it out, and you quickly figure out that your dad knows stuff, and there is no, hey dad, you're an idiot, because there is no Aboriginal guy who ever saw something his son did and went, oh, look at that, how'd you do that? Oh no, I can't do that. You young people, it's basically one culture. So yeah. So what am I getting at? What I'm getting at is we want to improve the world, want to change the world, want things to be better. And a lot of us grew up very skeptical about traditions and the way things are, and we want to throw things out. And unfortunately, the things we're throwing out, they might appear to be random or, what's the word? Not idiosyncratic. The word is not trivial. Man, sorry, it's really late at night. What time is it? 1:29 a.m. Really, not random is the word I'm looking for. Damn it. Anyway, something that there's no reason for it. Anyway, and the other problem is that was never explained to us. Most parents, especially in certain cultures, they're like, well, this is right and wrong, and do this and don't do that. And why? Because I said so. I mean, I definitely grew up in a because I said so with the hint of the threat of violence behind it. Don't question it too much. Which, of course, maybe has affected my brain, which is why I'm questioning everything. And, but here's another one, which is another example of something which a lot of people reject, which I did too, which I was getting at just before, which is, the concept of a girl at 14 getting married and having babies. Suddenly we have the pill, and it's like, wow, we don't have to do that anymore. And you can have sex without catching diseases and without having babies. So why not? Enjoy, your 20s having sex, and which I did, and a lot of people did, and of course the parents objected. Said, oh, it's terrible, you're a slut, or you're this, or or immature, or blah, blah, blah. But they didn't actually give much more. They weren't very persuasive. They just had, a lot of them were intellectuals. They were just following what the culture told them. This is the way things are. You shouldn't do this. You should do that because that's right and that's wrong. Why is it wrong? Because it's improper. What does that mean? Rah, 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 rah. So the kid thinks, all right, my parents are fucking idiots. Screw you, mum, dad, I'm going to do what I want. And the parents themselves couldn't explain why. Because culture transmits itself through, behaviors transmit themselves through culture, And this is one of the things with, I guess, with Islam, which, because it covers every single thing, how to do this, how to do that, how to wash yourself, how to wash your ears, and how to dress, and how to do your hair, and so it's almost like the idiot's guide to, imposed with violence, by the way. So the good news is the dumbest person in Islam can, is washed and, has a basic, depending on the country. Anyway, my point is that they just follow what you're supposed to do. It's like the ultimate, the dumb cunt can follow, anybody can follow what they're told to do. Do this, and if you don't, we're going to do this to you. And if you leave the religion, we're going to kill you. So okay, I'll do this. So everybody does the certain behaviors in the culture, and the culture is enforced. And you've heard about cases where the kids, they go to a Western country where the kids are exposed to new ideas, and they say, well, actually, you're just threatening me. I think I'll do what I want to do, and the parents kill them. So yeah, so there's definitely a challenge, because we want to move forward in society. What does that mean? It means we want to make smart, intelligent decisions. We want to use logic and reason and evidence to decide what is right and wrong, what is the best thing to do. And the logic says you should wear underwear. And also the logic, by the way, if you look at the stats, says you should get married young, and the women should be at age of 14, 15, 16, you should be having babies. Have your babies, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever, by 25, 30. And this is the thing, I know women have done this. So you had your babies, and then you're 30 years old, and your youngest is 6 and 7, and they're out, basically as a person. And at 30, you can now study. Let's take the extreme to become a doctor. And let's say it takes you 10 years. Now you're 40. and you've got your entire career ahead of you, 40, 50, 60. So if you retire in 25 years, or 65, 40, 50, 60, that's 25 years. 25 years as a doctor, uninterrupted, straight the way up, and the kids are grown. This makes so much more sense than being at your peak fertility and spending that time studying and having boyfriends, and then at 35, 40, deciding, hey, I think I'll start a family now amidst and stop your career. It's just, you see, it just makes sense. But people are not, even now, people have invested so much in the go to school in your 20s that the idea that was a big mistake and that they ruined their lives is so painful, they're not even going to discuss it. So there's all these lies now about, oh, no. Luckily, I think the word is spreading now, and a lot of unhappy women, miserable women, especially the reality that even at 30, your fertility's been severely affected, and 35, that if you look at the fertility chart, it goes, ooh, it's pointing downwards at that point. And then there's these idiots who, all it takes is one woman at 42 to have a kid, and everyone's like, I see, you can do it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there because I've talked for quite a while now about how things change and how people throw away the old things and reject conservatism. See, this is the thing, the conservative, even the conservative party, conservative politics. What do I picture when I think conservative? I picture some guy in a suit with religious beliefs who doesn't crack dirty jokes, isn't fun, he doesn't talk about chicks, very the standard boring people who, they're not fun. They're not, In the past, the fun, crazy people would still get married and have kids, so they'd have more. But now they've kind of distanced themselves. You can be in a big city, you can break away. All the nerds get married young, and the crazy people have their own little groups. So you end up with the group of the crazy people who, they're not crazy people, rock and roll, clubbing, look at Sex and the City for the chicks out there. The 4 girls, they all became friends, and they had their 4-girl peer group of unmarried women in their late 30s, one was thinking her 40s, to go out and have fun and do this and that. Whereas in the village, that wouldn't have happened. At 21, all your friends are getting married, you're losing your friends. You better marry up quick and it's the same with me. I'm not pointing any fingers here, If all my friends had gotten married at 18, I was the only one left, definitely the next girl I got would be like, well, I guess why not? And she seems nice and da-da-da-da-da. Unfortunately, your brain is full of these ideas of, I can always do better. And what about that one? She's pretty hot. And your friends are going out, and the people that get married disappear. It's like, all right, screw them. I've got Jimmy I can go out with. And Jimmy gets married, well, Joey can go out with. And of course, as you get older, Jimmy and Joe disappear. You end up with a smaller. All the guys that could get girls get them, and you end up with the bitter old dudes. But I digress. Anyway, this is a very long chat I've had, and I don't know what I'm going to title this. I guess why society takes a while to change. Because people cling to the old. Let me give a conclusion here. Why did society take ages to change? Well, because there's a resistance from the tried and tested ideas, plus also the new ideas. Let me just check my time. And the new ideas, a lot of time, are being experimented with, but they're being, I'm not explaining my conclusion very well, which is why I had to get this out there in case. But this all started with thinking about walking around naked and why we don't walk around naked. We have to wear clothes. And it's kind of like, oh, that's right. So the old people were right about that. And they couldn't tell you why about diseases and this and this. And who knows if it was, were there a bunch of people out there who were naked and they caught diseases and they all died off? And so just through, let's say instinct works with animals, with DNA replication, you end up with so specific, so fluke, these little edge conditions that result in a tiny bit of evolutionary advantage. So you end up with, those stick insects that look exactly like sticks. Over zillions of years, the more you look like a stick, you end up surviving a tiny bit more till you end up with something that looks exactly like a stick. Each time a little mutation looks a little bit more like a stick. So all the tribes that were naked, or didn't wear clothes, did they all die off or whatever? Anyway. So we've got to separate the stuff that had evolutionary advantage in the past with stuff that no longer has evolutionary advantage now. and vice versa. Stuff that had stuff in the past that was valuable, like the getting married young and having kids, that is a detriment now. And this is the challenge. So yeah, don't throw away tradition. Don't assume just because they did in the past that it was wrong. And especially if it hasn't been explained to you, if people who are following that tradition cannot explain it, doesn't mean it's wrong. See, this is the thing. There's certain things. The teenage girl tells the parents, "Why can't I have safe sex and do stuff?" And the parents are like, "Well, why can't I have a boyfriend?" And the parents are like, "Because it's wrong." Because they can't identify it. And all she needs is one role model from the new world saying, "Hey, this is cool," and there's no resistance. The new idea just goes through. Yeah. Anyway, just some ideas out there. I could go on about how communism becomes popular and Islam kind of cults and things and how they challenge ideas, and yet we need to assess these things when we're deciding what kind of life we want to live and what's right and wrong. I mean morally right. I mean in terms of what is a good thing to do, a bad idea versus a good idea. What is the way to go, and figuring out where the evidence is. And sometimes you've got to come up with your own evidence for stuff in the past. Ask, why did they used to do this? What is the advantage of them having to do this? And dismissing it because they're idiots or because it doesn't suit us. Because certain things become fashionable at certain times. And people do them even though they're stupid ideas. I don't know. Anyway, look, I'm going to leave it there because I'm babbling a little bit now. Okay, bye.